house guests. Welcome to today's BBCan 10 updates and spoilers. Woo! Happy Monday. Our house guests of the day are Cam789 and Candy Steck. Thank you both so much for the support. And what's up to Joey? Thank you both so much for the support. We could not do this without you, and we appreciate it so much. So thank you again. And if you guys want to be house guests of the day, check out our Patreon link in the info box below. Belowsies. I also want to thank our super chatters from the other day because you're all amazing, and that's another fantastic way to support our channel. I just realized you could see the internet thingy in the back. Sean, Chris F, The Real VB, and Rachel Galbraith, thank you all so much for the support. Seriously, it means a lot to us. So, we have so much to catch up on. When we left off the other day, the house guests were waiting for the Power Veto competition. Josh and Betty were nominated by Marty, the HOH, and the three extra players, in addition to Josh and Betty, were Gino, Kevin, and Summer. We're going to get to the POV in a little bit. But first, Marty's number one target for this week was Betty, because he feels like she masterminded a trap for him during the double eviction, made him look like a fool for voting for Gino to go. So just another classic case of Marty trying to pass the blame off to somebody else for him snaking one of his allies. Sounds about right. He's thinking that Josh was just a part of this and not the mastermind. But it's funny because Marty has also admitted that he doesn't really remember that much from this meeting in the Expedia room, but he just feels like Betty was the one who was really in charge of everything. So hopefully tonight, on tonight's episode, we'll get to see what went down before the second eviction during the double, and we can see this Expedia room meeting and what was going on, why they decided to change their minds at the last minute, all of that. I'm hoping we'll get some answers tonight. But anyway, before the Power Veto, Marty was talking to Helena in the HOH room, and Helena says, Marty, I just really don't want to see you play Gino's game. I want to see you play my game. She tells Marty, if Josh or Betty came off the block, I hope you make the decision that's best for your game. Just a little side note, Helena and Kevin, this week, their goal is to get Marty to take out Herman, which is definitely a possibility, right? So Helena and Kevin have been freaking working it. So Marty says, I know what I would do if Josh or Betty came off the block. He says, I would act like Moose is going up as a replacement, and then I would blindside Herman and put him up instead. So I don't know how serious he was about this at that point. If he was just trying to test the waters with Helena or what, because that is definitely something that he likes to do, say something and then see how people react to it. So Helena was very excited to hear this news. She's like, yes, you're using your head. This is amazing. Like, this is great for your game. And Marty says, it wouldn't be backstabbing to put Herman up on the block. Marty did make a 1-week safety deal with Herman, but okay. If you say it's not backstabbing, I guess that means it's true. So it sounds like Marty wants to use this as some sort of a test for Gino that will come up again later. He says, I'm not stupid. I know that Gino and Herman are working together. And this is something that Kevin and Helena have been pushing. They want Marty to be nervous about Herman and Gino leaving him out, and working together without Marty. So Helena is further reinforcing the move, saying, if Herman were to win HOH, he would put up me and Kevin, and you would be losing a number. We're both really close to you. You need us here. So it would be bad for your game if Herman won HOH. So she's also pushing how close Herman is to Gino and JC Lynn and Summer. So that's 3 people that he's got working with him, right? And Marty's like, yeah, I see all of this. I see it. Ah! Okay. So then the feeds go down for several hours for the Power Veto competition, and we find out it was some sort of like comp that was done in rounds, and it sounds like the players had to vote for like who was going to be in each competition or each round of the competition, and it came down to Kevin versus Gino, and the winner of the power of veto was Kevin. So now, wow, is Kevin gonna save Josh, his Rat Pack or Crash Test Dummy ally? Or will he leave the nominations the same to try and keep that alliance hidden and keep Marty happy by leaving the noms the same? It's a big question. It's a big decision here. So Helena and Kevin are chatting in the HOH room, and Helena says, "We have to convince this man." This man being Marty. And Kevin says, "Yeah, this could be a $100,000 move for Marty to put up Herman." They want Herman out of here this week. You know, they messed it up. They beefed it during the double eviction. They could have gotten Gino out of there, but they messed up their votes. They weren't confident. And now this is another opportunity to take out a big competitor. So a little later, Kevin meets up with Marty in the HOH room, and Marty is jumping on Kevin. He's so excited. He's like, "Oh, I'm so happy that you won. What are you thinking you're going to do with this veto?" And Marty says, "Helena came and talked to me right after the power of veto, like before the feeds came back, so we didn't see that one." But he says Helena was saying, "We have to backdoor Herman. We have to put him up as the replacement nominee." And Marty says Helena was so adamant about it. She was pushing hard to save Josh. So this leads Marty to believe that Helena must have a side thing going with Josh. Uh-oh, Marty's catching on to how close Helena and Josh are. So Marty is worried that if he were to do this and put Herman up as the replacement, that he would lose Gino and JC Lynn. They wouldn't be happy with him. So Kevin's like, "Do you want to know what I think, Marty? I think if you backdoor Herman, it might win you $100,000. Or it could win Kevin $100,000. Can you imagine Kevin getting to the final two and talking about all the stuff that he's like puppeteered throughout the season? I mean, this would be a big thing on his resume. He was a huge part of making this happen. So Marty is like, yeah, but he's worried about Betty staying in the game. He says, "Betty hates my guts. Summer hates my guts." He's had issues with both of them this week. He says, "I wouldn't have Josh. You know, Josh is not going to want to work with me." And Kevin says, "Yeah, but like, we can fix all that. We can make it work. And getting rid of Herman will bring us closer to Gino. We could have our final five with me, you, Helena, Gino, and JC Lynn." This is a five that's kind of like been in the works, but is anybody really loyal to that group? I don't know. But anyway, Kevin is really pushing this final five with Marty. So Marty says, "Well, I would only consider putting up Herman if we could get Gino's blessing on the move." So Marty is also thinking this is the last eviction before the jury starts. No, we know from Marissa that the jury starts now, like this week. So whoever is evicted this week is supposed to be the first member of the jury. But Marty thinks that they have one more week, so whoever goes will not be on the jury. But this is a huge reason why he wants Betty out this week. He says she holds a grudge. He doesn't want her in jury, potentially being a vote for somebody at the end. Like, So Kevin keeps pushing for the move for Herman to go up as the replacement nominee, and Marty keeps resisting for now. Big Brother was even trying to like dim the lights on them because it was late. It was like after 2 a.m. at this point. Big Brother was like, "We're done with this shit. Like, shut it down." Marty is saying he wants to talk about the potential move with Gino. He wants to see how he will react. So more on that in a bit. But after Kevin was done talking to Marty, Kevin checks in with Josh, and he lets Josh know Helena and I are in absolute scheme mode right now. Kevin tells Josh, "You just need to be nice to Marty, right? And if Betty is chirping at Marty because they've had their issues this week, get the F out of there, right? You don't want to be anywhere near that." So Kevin says, "Again, I'm working my ass off. We'll talk more tomorrow." A little bit later, he also advises Josh, "Just tell Marty that if you come off the block, you will vote whichever way Marty wants." You know, he needs to hear that, and tell him that you're not going to go after him if you stay. All right. So then Sunday morning, Kevin and Marty are chatting again, and Marty is still like, I want Betty to go. I can't have her here. Like, I can't work with her. She needs to go. But he does want to use this potential plan to put up Herman as replacement nominee. He wants to use that as a test for Gino. He wants to figure out how close Gino actually is to Herman at this point. So he's going to pitch to Gino, I think I want to move the target to Herman for this week because he's the biggest threat on the other side of the house. And if Gino fights back and says, no, I don't think we should do that, then that will mean that Gino's working closely with Herman. If Gino's cool with it, then that means that he is closer to that group of 5. So Kevin says, I'm pretty sure that Gino is still with us. I don't think he's going to ditch us for Herman. But Herman does have the best chance of winning out of everybody on the other side of the house, like outside of their 5. So Marty's like, oh, I don't know. He's afraid that he's going to look stupid in front of Canada. And Kevin says, I think leaving Herman in the house would make you look more stupid, but that's just me. And he tells Marty, I don't know that we're going to get another chance to take out Herman like this. We got to take advantage of this. So after this conversation, Marty is alone talking to the cameras, gets right up in the camera's face. And Marty says, I'm repairing things with Gino. I want to go to the Final Four with him. Well, it seems dumb. Do you want to lose? But he says it sucks that Herman might target Kevin and Helena. But there's no way that he's going to backdoor Herman after what he said in his nomination speech. Because apparently Marty made some a-hole speech for the nominations and said something about like not backdooring people, and he addressed Canada directly. So if he's saying like, if I made that speech and then I turn around and I backdoor Herman, I'm going to look like the biggest jerk ever. So he says, hopefully Betty is going to walk out of this house this week. We'll see about that. Okay. So then Kevin and Summer are chatting in the purple bedroom, and Summer is saying she wants to break up the pretty boys. Yeah. She says, I don't know why Marty seems to think that he owes Gino anything this week. She really thought he would just finish the job that he didn't finish last week of voting Gino out and just put Gino up on the block. So it's interesting that we're seeing Summer trying to get Gino up on the block when they've kind of had like a close relationship throughout the season, but it's definitely been strained the last week or so. So Kevin is advising Summer, please do not pitch for Gino to be the replacement nominee. There's like a 0% chance that Marty puts Gino up on the block. Marty is obsessed with Gino. Yeah, seems like it. So he says, if you pitch for Gino to go up, that could get you in trouble with Marty, and he might end up putting you up. Kevin is just like, oh my God, I'm so close to getting Marty to put up Herman. Like, he doesn't need anybody else mixing things up and changing Marty's mind. So Kevin gives Summer some advice. Apologize to Marty. I know that it's annoying because remember, Marty and Summer had their issues a few days ago. They were arguing about whether or not Summer pitched Marty as a potential backdoor target to Jess last week. Summer is saying she did not. Marty is saying that she did. So they got into it about that. So Kevin's like, just apologize, even if it's for something that you didn't actually say, and tell Marty that you'll vote the way he wants you to this week. That's all you got to do. So Summer says she feels like they can figure out a way to keep Josh and Betty safe this week. Yes. Okay. Kevin thinks that Marty could be okay with Josh coming off the block, but not Betty. Marty's still convinced that Betty was the trap setter. So Kevin says maybe we could get Moose or like Herman up on the block, but he's reassuring Summer the chance of her going up is very low right now. So she just needs to play it cool. All right. Meanwhile, Marty and Josh are chatting in the HOH room. This conversation was a lot, and it went on forever. So Marty is telling Josh, Betty is my target this week, not you. But he's torn on whether he can trust Josh or not. He wants to. He feels like in his gut he can, but he just can't get over what happened on double eviction night. So they're talking about that, the meeting in the Expedia room before the vote. And Marty says he really feels like there was a trap set for him and he just walked right into it. So Marty says that meeting before the vote was all a blur, but he thinks that Betty was the mastermind. And Marty is going on and on about how honorable he is. He's even going back to like the week that he turned on the guys and went against Kyle's wishes. He's trying to justify stabbing his allies in the back multiple times. It's a bit obnoxious, but Marty's like, oh, so pissed and so hurt. I almost broke my hand banging on the table. So we got confirmation that that banging noise that we heard on the feeds before the feeds went down a few days ago was him banging his hand on the table. Oh my God. And he says, this whole week has been about revenge for me. I probably look like a child, trying to get revenge, blah, blah, blah. And Josh is saying, I would never try and set you up like that. And it's hurtful that you would think I would do that. But anytime Josh tries to tell his side of the story, Marty just cuts him off. Marty doesn't want to hear it because whatever Josh is saying does not fit in with the narrative that Marty already has in his head. It's exhausting, honestly. So there were two important things from this conversation. Josh told Marty, like Kevin advised him to, I will vote however you want this week if I come off the block. And Marty said he would be okay with Josh coming off of the block as long as Betty is the one leaving. Marty is convinced that Betty has a secret power. Oh my God. So he wants to try and wash that out. Okay, so after Josh tells Kevin about the conversation with Marty, and they agree. They do not think that Betty has a secret power. She would have told them by now. Yeah. Kevin says, Josh, I think you need to lie to Marty and say that Herman is targeting Marty big time. And Josh is like, yeah, but Marty has a big mouth. And he'll just end up spilling that information to Herman. So Kevin's like, it doesn't matter. If Herman goes up, he's out of here. We just got to get him up on the block. And Josh reveals, okay, but that's going to be really awkward for me because I have a final 2 deal with Herman. But Kevin's like, it's fine. Who cares? Herman has a final 2 deal with like everyone. He's got 12 final 2 deals. I don't know about that. But Kevin is asking Josh, who would you rather have here? Herman or Betty? Because Betty and Josh have gotten super, super close lately. They agree that they would both rather have Betty here than Herman. Okay. So then Kevin brings up, just so you know, Herman pitched to me that I should leave the nominations the same. You two are supposed to have a final 2, and he's telling me to leave the nominations the same. So Kevin says he's trash. He'll turn on anyone. And he's really annoyed that after 35 days of not talking game with him, all of a sudden Kevin wins power veto and Herman is suddenly talking game with him. So Kevin lets Josh know, I think you would be safe if the nominations stayed the same, but we could really use Betty as a number. So we got to get Herman up there. Excuse me. Okay. A little later, Gino and Marty are chatting in the HOH room, and Marty is presenting his test. He says, Herman is the biggest threat to win competitions on the other side of the house. Herman is the guy to take out. And Gino says, yeah, it is Herman. So there's like absolutely no resistance there. It was like this big buildup, and it's just like, yep, okay, let's take Herman out. So they were talking about like other potential threats. They're not as worried about Josh anymore. He's coming like second place in a bunch of competitions, but they're like, Josh, he chokes in a lot of competitions. He panics. We don't really have to worry about him as much. So then Marty starts going on a rant about how badly he wants Betty to leave this week. And honestly, it's hard to listen to him after a while because he's just so whiny and he's not taking accountability for his actions. But after Marty word vomits about Betty. He's like, Herman has to go. As much as it pains me to leave Betty in here, Herman has to go. So Gino brings up, Moose is a pretty good competitor too. Like, should we be looking at him? And Marty's like, no, I think Herman is better. So there was like the tiniest bit of resistance there from Gino. But Marty says we can't give Herman the chance to take out Kevin and Helena, right? They're supposed to be in a final 5 together with those two. So Gino says, it's your HOH. I'm not here to change anything that you want to do. And if you feel that that's the move, I'm on board as long as the rest of the 5 is also on board. At one point, though, Gino did admit he was trying to build something back up with Herman. So it's kind of like inconvenient, but he sees how this is a smart move. Oop. So he kind of admitted to Marty, like, yep, I am building something with Herman. So this started out as a test. But it seems like Marty really does want to target Herman now, and Gino's like, fine with it. So later, Gino checks in with Helena and Kevin, and they all confirm they are cool with Herman going up and out this week. Oh my goodness. So in other news, Josh did a cleansing or a smudging ceremony for Marty out by the hot tub. They hugged after. Betty was out there too, and she apologized to Marty. She said her feelings were really hurt from that nomination speech, and she felt like it was personal. Marty apologized to her too. I don't know how genuine that is. I think Betty still wants to split up Marty and the Showmans. But this is another step forward, another step towards Herman being the renom this week. So as the day goes on, the Herman backdoor is looking more and more likely. I mean, at one point, Marty lets Josh and Betty know that they're both going to be safe this week. And eventually, pretty much everyone hears about the plan one way or another, except for Herman. I think Moose knew that, like, the veto was going to be used, but that he would not be going up as the replacement. But I don't know that Marty actually told him who was. I don't think he did. But Herman is under the impression that Kevin will not be using the power veto at all, because that's what Marty told him. Ah! So Herman is about to get his shit rocked. Okay, so they had the power veto ceremony today. Why am I yelling? And oh my God, it actually happened. Kevin used the power veto on Josh, and Marty put up Herman in his place. It was a blindside. Oh my God. So we've got Herman versus Betty up on the block. And I want to say, like, I have really enjoyed Herman on this season so far. I think he's a great player, but it's kind of entertaining to see Kevin and Helena pull this off. I think it's, Kevin and Helena who were really pulling the strings here. But after the ceremony, Herman is talking to Moose in the red bedroom, and Herman says, Marty and Kevin, they're both wild cards. They are trying to do some maniacal shit. Herman says he feels like his downfall was telling Marty that he would put Helena and Kevin up on the block if he won HOH, because I guess Herman already had a one-on-one conversation with Marty after the POV ceremony, but before the live feeds came back. And Herman says Marty told him Helena and Kevin are the 2 closest people to him. So when he heard that Herman was going to put them up on the block, again, Marty just spilling everything, like, oh yeah, Helena and Kevin are my closest allies. So apparently during that conversation, Marty also told Herman that he is the target this week. And you know what Herman told Marty at the end of the conversation? He told Marty to look into one of the cameras and say that he's a backstabber. Oh my God. But Marty refused to do it. Okay, so Herman is thinking, like, oh my God, Gino's going to be so pissed at Marty for this. He thinks a lot of people didn't know that he was going up on the block. Yikes. He doesn't realize, like, almost the whole entire house was on board with this and is planning to vote for Herman to go. So Herman says, well, at least now I can say that Marty is definitely my target. And he said he had a feeling that he was going up when Kevin used the power veto. He was like, what? That's not what we talked about. So after this conversation, Herman was alone talking to the cameras. And he says, I am the target. Marty, if you shoot, don't miss, my guy. I'm coming for that ass. Let's go. And he says, I will dance when I want to dance. I don't need Marty telling me when to dance. Apparently, Marty told him to dance onto the block during his nomination speech because of what happened during Jess's HOH week. So Herman says, I'll dance on your grave when I win HOH. So Herman also says Canada sees the type of player that Marty is. He's trash. He has no morals. He's banging tables, saying he's upset. He says he's on a revenge tour and puts up Betty and Josh this week for a plan that they came up with, and he executed when they decided not to. He says, Marty, bro, you're trash. Herman continues to kill it with his camera talks. But Herman and Gino were working out in the backyard a little while later, and Gino was acting like he didn't give approval for this move. Come on, he's acting like he didn't know. Are you kidding me? But Herman says, I hope you keep me this week. I will keep you and JC Lynn safe. Obviously, you know who I'm targeting now. It's Marty. And he says, I think that Betty would try to break you guys up. You know, Betty is tired of the showmance. She's over it. She wants to split you guys up. So Herman also brings up how Marty admitted he's closest to Helena and Kevin. And this should be like sirens going off, red flags for Gino, because Gino is supposed to be working with Marty still. So Gino's like, yeah, well, that was clear in the chain of safety when Marty decided to keep Helena safe instead of me or JC Lynn. Yeah, this should have been a wake-up call for you. But no, you're telling Marty, like, yeah, I'm cool with you getting rid of Herman. Sounds good. So Herman says, let's make this week a waste for Marty. He would not have put me up on the block, though, unless he thought he had the numbers. So he's like, who does Marty think that he has? Basically everybody. So Gino says maybe Marty thinks he has Summer and Josh's votes. And mostly everybody else is. But you need 4 to evict this week. So we've got 3 days left until the eviction, and it's not looking good for Herman at this point. But you never know. I think Herman is going to come up with a really great campaign. I don't know that it's going to sway anybody at this point, but we'll see what happens. So let me know what you guys think in the comments about all this. Come on in. I also want to thank our super chatters today.
I'm
Hello.
a backstabber.
Yeah. Say it into the camera.
I'm a backstabber.
They should play that song.
Backstabbers.
What they do. All right. NM1000, thank you so much for the super chat. We really appreciate it. And Jefferson Tucker, thank you so much for the super chat. You guys are both
Angrily
amazing.
chew this. He says,
Bowie said,
I choose not to.
Not today. Good boy, Bowie. So I want to thank you all again for watching. There is an episode tonight at 7 p.m. So we will be back later to talk about it.
Bowie
right?
said, where's my lick mat?
Hey, you're so cute. You're going to get your lick mat later. Yes. Okay. So we'll see y'all later. Okay. And until next time, much love. Bye. Bye, everybody. Whoops.